Through the night, Israel's air assault on Gaza City intensified still further as its ground forces readied to move in. By Israel's own estimates, as many as 650,000 Palestinians remain in the city. This morning, rescue efforts underway to recover survivors from new ruins. This block, home to dozens of people, hit at 1 a.m. Rescue workers find Mara al-Haddad trapped. Over 10 long hours, they work to free her leg and at last take her to hospital. She says she knows of 2 other girls who didn't get out. Other witnesses say more than 20 remained trapped. Israel says thousands of Hamas fighters remain in Gaza City. The Defense Minister Israel Katz today calling it Hamas's governing symbol, that its fall would prompt the fall of Hamas, and that if Hamas fought on, Gaza would be destroyed. As the biggest Israeli ground operation since the start of the war unfolds, a determination today from the UN Commission of Inquiry on the Occupied Palestinian Territory that Israel is committing genocide. The Commission says it's found evidence of systematic and unprecedented killings, deliberate starvation, denial of health care, sexual and gender-based violence, and the direct targeting of children. Israel's foreign ministry immediately calling it distorted and false, saying the 3-member panel was working as a Hamas proxy, repeating Hamas lies. Genocide, as defined in the Convention of 1948, is the crime committed with the specific intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial or religious group. The Commission says Israel has committed 4 such genocidal acts: killing members of the group through targeting civilians and the deliberate infliction of conditions of life that caused their deaths, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group through direct attacks against civilians, mistreatment of detainees, forced displacement and environmental destruction, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, including blocking essential aid, food, water, electricity and fuel, and finding that starvation had been used as a weapon, and imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group through the attack on Gaza's largest fertility clinic, reportedly destroying around 4,000 embryos. The Commission found that Israel had shown its intent, key to proving genocide, through statements from the Prime Minister, the then Defense Minister and President at the start of the war, and that the way its military had prosecuted the conflict since was further circumstantial evidence of intent.
Therefore, the Commission concludes that the Israeli authorities and Israeli security forces have the genocidal intent to destroy, in whole or in part, the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. The Commission finds that the Israeli political and military leaders are agents of the State of Israel. Therefore, their acts are attributable to the State of Israel. The Commission therefore concludes that the State of Israel bears responsibility for the failure to prevent genocide, for the commission of genocide, and for the failure to punish genocide against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
Israel's representative in Geneva called it a fake report, driven in part by anti-Semitic bias.
Israel categorically rejects the libelous rant published today by this Commission of Inquiry. It spreads the malicious genocide narrative. I pose to you to read carefully this 72-page report and try and find the word Hamas. Hamas does not exist. It is some alien that attacked Israel on the 7th of October.
Today's conclusion by the UN Commission is not a judicial verdict. The International Court of Justice continues to hear South Africa's genocide case against Israel, with a ruling not expected for years. Might it, though, increase international pressure? The Israeli Prime Minister yesterday spoke of the need for self-reliance in the face of a growing siege, as he called it, against Israel, centered in Western Europe. Last month, Germany announced restrictions on arms shipments to Israel. Today, its foreign minister reacting to the report.
Die im Bericht beschriebenen Vorfälle sind außerordentlich besorgniserregend.
The incidents described in the report are extremely worrying. In armed conflicts, all parties are bound by international humanitarian law. In order to end the suffering in Gaza, we believe it is crucial, as we have repeatedly emphasized, that a ceasefire is finally reached.
betont, dass es endlich zu einem Waffenstillstand kommt.
But Israel's key ally holding out little hope of that. The US Secretary of State swapping Israel for Qatar today, saying Hamas now had only days or weeks to accept Israel's terms and cease to exist. Few in Gaza expect anything other than Israel's promised invasion into Gaza City. Thousands more today thronging the coast road south as the military of the UN Commission is now formally accused of carrying out a genocide, intensifies its campaign. Right, well, joining us now is Nimer Sultani from the School of Oriental and African Studies in London, an expert in international law. What then is your assessment of this report from the UN Commission of Inquiry?
This report further solidifies the consensus amongst the international legal scholarship, amongst the human rights community, amongst genocide studies scholars, Holocaust studies scholars, that Israel has been committing a genocide since October 2023, that this is not a war, but a genocide. When you see the mass slaughter, when you see the massive and comprehensive destruction of everything from cemeteries to schools to mosques to healthcare system to water infrastructure, and when you add to that the starvation and the over 20,000 Palestinian children killed, the inevitable conclusion, according to the UN Commission of Inquiry, which is an independent commission, that this is a genocide. Israel has been committing a genocide in Gaza since October 2023.
What is the distinction here? Because there is an International Court of Justice case ongoing brought by South Africa against Israel, accusing Israel of genocide. This isn't a judicial finding or judgment, is it? As you say, it's a commission. So legally, what power does it have? What standing does it have?
This UN Commission inquiry becomes the first independent commission that also mentions that this is a genocide by Israel. And therefore, it solidifies the consensus and becomes a nail in the coffin of genocide denial. And this genocide denial has acted to delay action on behalf of states, to delay recognition of the genocide in media outlets, in academic institutions, and of course of government.
I mean, Israel points out or has said today that this is a report that hasn't mentioned Hamas in any of its 72 pages, that Hamas and its fighters acted with genocidal intent on October the 7th. And it says that this is a report based on falsehoods by Hamas and is acting as a proxy for them. What's your response to that?
Obviously, this is false because in June 2024, the UN Commission of Inquiry produced two reports. One report about Israel's violations of international law till then, 120 pages, and another accompanying report of 60 pages of Palestinian violations of international law. So the UN Commission has been comprehensive in its treatment of international law.
You talk about the obligation on other international actors to respond to this. I mean, we have seen from Germany last month a restriction on some of the arms sales to Israel. It is responsible, estimated, for about 30% of military equipment sales to Israel. And as well as that, we've seen Benjamin Netanyahu himself yesterday talking about the need for Israel to be a super Sparta. He says that there is a burgeoning siege, especially in Western Europe, against Israel. I mean, do you see a shift in the international response, and do you see it potentially going forward from here?
The UN Commission is asking all states to stop all arms embargo, all arms sales to Israel, all arms trades with Israel, not only 30% or part of it. And what we have seen so far, timid actions by European states. So many European governments like the UK sanctioned what they call extreme ministers in the government. But if you look at the UN Commission report, it focuses on Netanyahu, it focuses on Gallant, it focuses on Herzog, which Starmer have received only recently. But the UN Commission inquiry says he incited to genocide. And this UN Commission of Inquiry report is a damning indictment of the policy of the UK government, of the European Commission, of European states that have failed to act, that have continued to shield Israel from accountability, to granted impunity, and in fact have been complicit in Israel's crimes in Gaza.
Israel has announced its ground invasion into Gaza City. I mean, are we looking at the last phase of the Israeli operation now, and all this talk really is not going to be effective?
So the Israelis have been clear that they are seeking the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians from Gaza. the destruction of Gaza, that, with all military units, they have now bulldozers that are destroying house after house after house. And this systematic destruction, as Netanyahu himself said in May 2025 in the Israeli Knesset, is intended for the Palestinians in Gaza not to be able to come back to their homes.
Well,
So
they
the
would say
intention-
that they are destroying Hamas infrastructure ahead of their ground invasion to root out the last remaining thousands of Hamas fighters. And they have said that in the future, Palestinians will be allowed to return.
Well, if you are going to destroy the Palestinians entirely in the Gaza Strip in order to defeat Hamas, that's also genocide. There is no security rationale for the total destruction of the education system. There is no security rationale that can justify the total destruction of the healthcare system. There is no security rationale, the UN Commission of Inquiry says, for the killing of over 20,000 children. Nothing justifies that.
All right, Nimr Sultani, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.